Begging for change. This is my stepbrother who suffers from mental illness. Tristan grew up in an unhappy environment that leads him down a dark path of drug abuse, which eventually has caused him to develop psychosis. He is a 30-year-old man with very little hope for his future. This not only affects his family, but all of my family around him. Long-term drug abuse causes inability to function in society, unable to hold down a job or paying for your bills. With medical help, government assistance can try and help to rehabilitate back into society. Are you aware that 157,000 people were estimated to be homeless in Canada in 2008? Based on my first novel, The Glass Castle, Jeanette Wall's autobiography outlines her father's tale of destruction, with alcoholism that drove the family from home to home and ultimately put the parents on the streets. The film that I chose, The Pursuit of Happiness, complements my first novel. This storyline tells of the father desperately trying to make a living with his limited means, in pursuit of trying to make a life for his family despite his many knocks and ultimately on the street with nothing. He teaches his son the values of family and supporting each other. My second novel, The Grapes of Wrath, is a story about a family that loses their land and moves away to find new prosperity. Living on the streets proves to be problematic for the Jode family, and stress causes anger and tempers to fly. With our economy at a lower level, many people are losing their jobs or living on one income due to downsizing. This causes inability to pay a mortgage or pay rent and sometimes make it difficult to even buy food. This affects the whole family. 1 in 50 children are homeless or housed in motels or shelters. As shown in the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, the father tries desperately to sell his product but continuing to fall in a slum, therefore forcing him and his son onto the street. What drives the father to want better for himself and his son? The answer lies in the father wanting a better life for his son, teaching him the many values of loyalty and staying together through good times and bad times. In the case of The Glass Castle, the father's alcohol problem keeps him from holding down a full-time job, therefore frequently having to move and leaving the children feeling unsettled and unhappy. Do children from a low-income family desire to do better for themselves? In most cases, children in this situation wait to have enough money and the right time to move away from the family and start a better life for themselves. Living in an environment with alcohol and drug abuse can be a roller coaster ride. The many ups and downs caused by erratic behavior, inability to keep a job, and often in an abusive home tends to break up a family, possibly putting them on the streets. Homelessness exposes children to risks and hardships during critical early stages and in their development. In the case of The Glass Castle, alcohol puts the family on the streets and alters the children's personalities. On the side is a picture of a Toronto police officer, Ryan Russell, officer that was killed in the line of duty in 2011. This is a story of a mentally ill man out early one winter morning joyriding his stolen snowplow. After the mentally ill man caused lots of damage, the police were called to apprehend him. On the rampage, he ran over police officer Russell by killing him. This mentally ill man living homeless on the streets was tried for murder, but based on his mental illness, he was released. How can people like this fit back into society? Do people with mental illness find themselves on the streets? Whether or inherited or acquired mentally illness can greatly alter one's personality, therefore keeping it difficult to hold down a job. Not surprisingly, physical and mental health problems are much more prevalent among homeless youth. They are more likely to be exposed to violence and drug use at a very early age. The Glass Castle novel displaces the outcome of mental illness, with one of the children caused by an unstable environment and abusive parents. What caused Maureen to become violent with her mother and end up in a mental institution? Years of stress and abuse in an unstable home life escalates Maureen's behavior and temper, resulting in attacking one of the causes of her mental illness. The novel The Grapes of Wrath develops when a family is forced off their land and headed for a hopeful new start. Along this journey, much stress is created for the family, and due to the continued stress, conflict and violence arises. The role of the government with the homeless. Is the government doing enough to assist homeless people? With so many thousands of people living on the streets, many in well-off neighborhoods, it is surprising that more isn't being done to help these people. There seems to be no middle class any longer, only wealthy and poor. Not only does this affect individuals, but families that are on the street as well. Many of these parents hold down a full-time job, but because of high expenses and costs, they still can't afford to pay rent and pay for groceries. Access to child care is also essential. Such vouchers help working parents' earnings at or around minimum wage to hold onto their jobs and also give them the time to seek out additional training. Opportunities which can lead to career advancement and higher income. Why does the government let so many people live on the streets? For those who have hope and desire to better themselves, government assistance will hopefully be there to assist them. Many people become depressed with their circumstances and sometimes give up hope for a better future. If you aren't willing to help yourself, no one else will. In conclusion, we live in a predominantly affluent society in Canada with homeless people on many corners. People as well as the government need to re-educate the public on the reasons and why homelessness doesn't mean hopelessness.